Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. Happy May to all of you. The Orioles remain home this week. We had a great time at Coco's in Lauraville on Wednesday. Had some great guests. Gave away the Back to the Future scratch-offs. Had a chance to visit with Jamie Costello, which was fantastic, as well as Senator Corey McRae. My pal Howard Perlow came over to talk about the Las Vegas party that he throws for Maryland folks. And Rasig came by to try to fix the Orioles, and he had some very pointed words about the drafting of Mike Green for the Ravens. So you'll hear all of that, as well as our crab melt residue. All of that can be found at Baltimore Positive. Luke Jones can be found at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. He was there for the defeat of the New York Yankees. They won a series, Luke. I mean, barely. Hey, one-run victories, I'll take them. I'll take them by fractions at this point. But a win, another win, and I don't know that it washes out what happened on Tuesday night, but I don't know. I mean, series win's a series win. It's what you wanted on Monday morning.
I mean, that's how you have to view it at this point. You can't climb out of a 7 games under 500 hole by winning one game by 15 runs, right? I mean, that doesn't exist. I mean, it certainly would help your run differential, but hey, they won a series for just the second time all year. They did it against the first place Yankees. They did it with Felix Bautista earning 2 1-run saves and looking really good doing it. Hit 99 miles per hour on Wednesday night. So that was good to see. Look, I mean, they've got work to do, and we've talked about this. And I think we're past the point of pointing to one victory or even one series win and saying, "Oh, okay, everything's fine." But that's what you need to do, and that's how you need to approach it. There is no looking at this and saying, "Well, we need to win 12 straight because if we do that, then we'll be 5 games over and everything's peachy." That's not realistic. You need to view it through the lens of what about tonight's game? What about this weekend? What about the next 3 game series? What about the next week of baseball, right? And you have to be able to compartmentalize as much as you can. And I think that's been a challenge for this team, even going back to the second half of last year of not letting things snowball. But I think the difference is, at least specifically to Wednesday night, Povich wasn't great by any means and certainly gives up a home run to Aaron Judge very early. And you're thinking, here we go again. But he was at least competitive enough that it gave them a chance, right? The bar is very low from a starting pitching standpoint. We understand that. Other than Sagano, there's not a whole lot of confidence in anyone going out there at the moment. But if you can get into the fourth, fifth, sixth inning and you're not down 6 runs, you haven't given up 8 runs or anything like that, you'll take that right now. And it was good enough. And then the bullpen was mostly good behind him. And Felix Bautista slammed the door. And if we're looking for signs of things that you like about this club, we've talked a lot about Mullins and Ryan O'Hearn. We've talked about Ramon Arias, who hit a home run on Wednesday night. It was good to see Mountcastle finally hit a home run, but Felix Bautista, he's looking more like himself. That doesn't mean that he's going to start throwing 2 innings or pitching back-to-back nights or 3 out of 4 nights just yet. I don't think we're going to see that for a while, but when he's out there, he's looking sharper and the velocity is ticking up. I think the split's been really good. I mean, Brandon Hyde even said that thinks his slider might be better than it was a couple years ago, which that wasn't a major part of his repertoire at that point. So that's good to see. It's good to get a series win against the Yankees. It's good for them to bounce back after how hideous Tuesday night was to get a win, but they've got a lot of work to do. I mean, when you're 12-18 at the end of April, the season's not over, and I'll continue to stress that. I even went through and looked at some of the Orioles' historic playoff teams or teams that were really good. 1982, where they took the Brewers down to the last day, they were 8 games under 500 in late April, right? So there's a very easy comp right there, which in today's system, that 1982 team would have been in the playoffs, that with wild cards and what have you. 1980, when they won 100 games, they were 5 games under 500 the third week of May. So we tend to forget that when teams play better the rest of the year. They have to play better.
Well, the question is, are they capable of that?
Right, and that's the big
I mean,
question.
you're
And
mentioning teams with Hall of Famers and teams that
of
I grew up
course,
with and stuff like that, and in a different way. The body language. I hadn't seen Mountcastle smile since last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I
I'm
mean,
sitting at Coco's, and he smiled, and I'm like, oh well, that's the energy we're talking about. Where we sit here and it's somnambulant, and they get their ass kicked, and whoever the announcers, McDonald, have to make excuses or push it the other way, and the pregame and like the
yeah.
whole presentation of it is morose when they're losing. They hit home runs, they're hitting the water fountain, and they're having a like that's what started this thing 2 years ago for all these guys was that energy that comes with winning, high-fiving, smiling, getting the fans excited, getting each other excited, being excited to come to the ballpark, feeling you can win. The last 2 weeks is that's been absent. It really has been.
Yeah, and really for most of the month of April. I mean, it was very fleeting. There were a couple stretches there where, they won the Cleveland series and you say, okay, well, there you go. You've won a series finally. You could check that off. You could exhale about that and then move forward. And then they didn't play well after that, right? I mean, where the Reds did what they did to them on Easter Sunday.
Well, when you're
Uh,
losing, give up 20 runs once a week, and
yeah, and
your pitching's not good enough, and you go out there, there is a defeatist kind of feeling of we're not good enough. We can't be good enough. I feel that way sitting here about their pitching for sure. But I do feel like they could score 10 runs tonight, 10 runs tomorrow night, and maybe less than that when I see. I don't know about Kerstad. I don't know about Laureano. I feel like I knew more about Westberg, and I feel like I still believe in Rutschman to some degree that there's going to be a point where he hits 400 for a month and just becomes that guy again. Maybe I'm wrong. I always thought that about Wieters too.
yeah,
Once you see it, you feel like it's like Batista. I mean, the thing with Batista for me that we sit here and bitch about all that they've mismanaged. At least it feels like they're managing him right. So from that perspective, these are my little observations that I have after 3 games against the Yankees.
Yeah, and that's how you have to approach it. I mean, you're looking when you're 12 and 18, you're looking for signs of things that can help you moving forward. And Batista's a good example of that. Now, we know he's not pitching back-to-back days. We know they're not going to toss him for 2 innings at a time like they did pre-elbow injury. I mean, who knows if we're ever going to see that element? The back-to-back days part, maybe we'll see that later as we get deeper into the summer and he's feeling good and he's further removed and the velo looks good and all the mechanics look good and all the tracking and data and all that suggests that he's doing fine. I don't know if we'll ever see the Felix Batista that's going 2 innings at a time like he was, not every time out, but going out semi regularly and giving them 5 outs, 6 outs, pitching the ninth inning, and then it goes to the extra innings on the road, and he's pitching the 10th inning as well. I mean, so that part of it you don't know, but it's good seeing him pitch like this in one-run games. Early on they brought him in a couple times when they had a lead by 4. It was a little bit of a safety net for him, which was good.
Well, you don't
But
want him blowing a game against the Yankees, a one-run game at
right,
home when you're not doing well, when you're
you
not
have to win
scuffling.
those.
So
Right, they are not in a position now, especially with the start that they've gotten off to. They have to win winnable games. I mean,
blown
that's
saves are not
I mean,
that
you
can't
talk about,
happen.
and that wouldn't be a dig on Batista specifically. It's a dig on just the state of affairs and knowing that you're going to have games where your starting pitching is not competitive and you're going to get blown out. I mean, that's kind of just where it is right now. You hope that can get a little bit better as the year goes on, and you get Eflin back, and you'll see about some of the other guys that are longer term injuries, but. Yeah, but this is just where it is right now. So when you get competitive enough outings from your starting pitchers, and I'm not sitting here singing the praises of Cade Povich, but it was at least competitive to the point where you can get to your bullpen with the lead. You've got to find ways to hold on, and that's even where I will say with the offense. I mean, they had an opportunity to tack on a little bit more than they did as the game went on. I mean, they had bases loaded, nobody out, and they got 1 run. That's generally speaking, when you're facing this Yankees lineup, that's not what you want to be doing. So, there's a lot of work to be done with this baseball team.
Well, I can
And
speak to that. I'm in Coco's early watching the game. I looked up; they had 4 runs, 7 hits, and 3 left on. And I'm like, well, it's a second inning. They're still
yeah,
leaving players on.
yeah,
And at that point, I'm like, that starts to stack up at the end of the night. And at least there's hits. I mean, I'm trying to find
sure,
bright spots. I mean,
sure.
Jackson Holiday is you know, a major league second baseman all of a sudden. He's hitting 240. It feels like he's gonna be okay. He's gonna figure it out, hit 280 at some point, right? I mean, that's how I look at it. He's not having uncompetitive at bats. And, they cursed that at a couple hits too. So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to awaken these young guys and make me feel about them the way Westberg made me feel about him and the
Yeah.
way that Cowser made you feel better than me. You're more Cowser than I am. I'm not convinced. I'm not in love with him as an all-star Major League Baseball
Well,
player yet.
I'm not ready to say he's an all-star. For me, they've missed Cowser so much just because not just what he can do with the bat, but he's a really good defender. It gives you more flexibility in your outfield. I mean, on any given night. Now, Laureano gives you better defense as a corner outfielder than some of their other options like Kerstad and Tyler O'Neill. But I think with Cowser, it just gave you more flexibility. It gave you a chance. And this obviously doesn't apply as much now because Mullins has been so good. But going into the year, there were a lot of questions about how much Mullins would play, specifically against left-handers, and Cowser's ability to play center field, give Mullins a day off. So that was my
Yeah,
point
you
with
know
him.
what? To your
But
point, there, right? If no, there's no Cowser, at least Mullins is hitting the ball the way you wanted Cowser
no
to hit the
doubt.
ball.
Well,
Right.
you prefer having both, but just think about, and we've talked about this, and it's not like Mullins had a great game on Wednesday night. He's 1 for 5 with 2 strikeouts, but just imagine where they'd be without him, without Ryan O'Hearn doing what he's done. I mean, O'Hearn 0 for 2 on Wednesday night, but drew 2 walks. I mean, he has a 292 average and a 378 on base percentage. I mean, he's slugging well over 500. Those two guys have been their best hitters. So you made the point about Rutschman, and it's spot on. I mean, there is no one else, and you're not sending 6 guys back to the minors because they're off to a bad start. I mean, th most of these guys are in a position at this point where there's nothing to accomplish at AAA anyway. They've all proven they can play at AAA. So what are you really accomplishing there? I mean, would I like to see Kobe Mayo up here at some point in the mix? Sure. Either that or trade him for a starting pitch or whatever you're going to ultimately do with him. But these are the guys that you're going to sink or swim with. We can talk all we want about the starting pitching, and this has kind of been the crux of my argument with you at various times over the month of April. It's like, look, the starting pitching's not supposed to be very good, and we can put that on Mike Elias, but on a night by night basis, you can't. It is what it is. But with their offense, with their
Adley Rutschman
lineup,
can't hit 222, and
yeah,
Gunnar
I
Henderson
mean,
can't hit
like
228. Right.
these are your cornerstones. This is your foundation, and if it's going to be this, then yeah, they're not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to be a good summer, and it's not going to. Heaven forbid. I mean, forget about 2025. If those guys aren't as advertised, then the next few years look much more bleak than the way we were thinking about it. So you just have to keep trotting them out there and hoping that they turn things around. And I think they will for the most part. Now, that being said, is that going to be enough? Understanding where your starting pitching is? I have no idea. And especially knowing that you're going to have to play even better the rest of the year because of the fact that you had a 12 and 18 March and April. I mean, they're behind the 8 ball a little bit. The season's not over, but at the same time, just because they win one series against the Yankees, no one's sitting here saying they're fine either. So
We got Dean Kramer going to the Hill Friday night. We're fine.
well, hopefully Dean Kramer can be better in May than he was in April. And he's had some seasons, even seasons where he's ended up being pretty good at the end, where he didn't get off to a great start. So that's what you kind of have to lean on. And one thing that I'll mention as I alluded to turning to the month of May, this team's schedule does soften up a little bit. And believe me, this is not me at all saying that April schedule was an excuse for how they played because we all know it wasn't, right? Not even close. But if you're looking for a path for this team to inch its way back up to 500, eh, they play Kansas City, they play Minnesota, they play the Anaheim, the LA Angels. They've got the Nationals again later this month. So you look at that and look, when you're 12 and 18, all those teams are looking at you and saying, "Hey, we've got a chance against the Orioles because they're not playing very well either." But Kansas City has not been great so far this year. Now they won a couple games, in this last series for themselves, but they've been mediocre. Minnesota is another team, kind of like the Orioles, right? They had terrible collapse last September, and they haven't recovered. So they're playing bad baseball as well. I mean, the Angels are in last place in the AL West, so these next couple weeks are a chance to get healthier. Doesn't mean you're making it all up all at once. Like I said, there's no singular performance where you can go out there and make up 10 games on the schedule. I mean, but you can go out and win 2 out of 3 and win 2 out of 3 and win 2 out of 3, even if they are by one run, even if the losses end up being a little lopsided, even if your run differential still looks lousy. You just got to make up wins however you can. And this goes back to how we viewed this club when Eflin went on the IL. After that start in Arizona, where I just said, reality is their starting pitching's not good enough right now, but they've got to find a way to just tread water and survive for the time being. And they certainly can't take on any more water. When you're 6 games under, you don't want to be looking up 2 weeks from now and you're 11 under. Then at that point, you're starting to say, doesn't feel like this is going to happen. So can you make up a game or two a week in terms of getting closer to 500? And if you look at Memorial Day, 3.5 weeks from now, and you're in a position that, you know, you're 500, let's say, at the very least, then I want to say you're fine, but you're feeling a lot better than you were at the end of
Well, wake
April.
me up when they
So
get pitching.
sure.
Wake
Well,
me up when I'm seeing 3, 4 days a week where they're getting the kind of pitching they're going to need to be a
I mean,
90-win team.
for me, I I hear what you're saying. I'm much more wake me up when they start swinging the bats to the degree that you're going to be able to overcome some of the because starting pitching is not going to be great. It's not going to be good. Maybe it can get to a point at some point later this year where it's I don't know trending on mediocre. Let's
Five
say
innings and survivable.
yeah, and
Yeah, you're right. If in the fifth inning, if they're losing 5-0, it's one thing. If they're losing 5-4, they have a
then
chance
you've
to
got a
win.
chance. Or if you're winning 4-3, right? So uh, again, is that fair to the young core? Probably not, and that's on Mike Elias, right? And that's why so many people are ticked off at Mike Elias and how this team's built its roster over the last few years. Fully acknowledging that pitching injuries haven't helped, and I'm not going to completely blame him for all of that. Although I certainly would question, your training methods, your mechanics, how you're developing your pitching. I mean, you got to at least ask. It's fair to ask, but they've got to get to the point where they've got to do everything else well. And,
When's
and
the
this
last
is
time Elias has said anything? Just so I'm just
he
asking.
spoke. I think the last time he talked was the Cleveland series 2 weeks ago. I think he needs to get in front of cameras and whether
What's the
it's
plan, dude? That's why I'm
well,
asking
I,
you
I
because
mean,
I haven't
look,
heard
there's
him say much lately. He's been getting annihilated on social media and
right,
all my timeline because the team's no good, and I haven't heard anything from him. I mean,
yeah.
Brandon Hyde has to come out every night. Nobody likes his quotes.
Well,
Nobody likes Kramer's quotes. Nobody likes the quotes of these dour, we're not playing well enough. It's in our heads, all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, where's leadership?
yeah, sure. No, I agree with you. And look, in terms of the plan, in quotes, I'm not sure what the plan can be in season, right? Especially at this point. No one's trading you premier starting pitching in on May 1st, right? So some of it is you just have to wear it a little bit for the time being. But I think a recognition of, hey, this is below the bar. Ultimately, I'm in charge of baseball operations. Ultimately, I'm the one who builds the roster. Ultimately, everything, the buck stops with me. And we need to be better, and we are going to be better, and we've got to figure this out. And everyone's got to be pulling in the same direction. And you might even get the dreaded vote of confidence for Brandon Hyde and the coaching staff, whether that means anything or not, who knows? But we know that typically, even when you make changes, there's some vote of confidence that comes weeks before that happening. Or it's a case of it might be Mike Elias saying, look, Brandon's getting a lot of heat for this. And that's not to say that isn't part of the responsibility for this, just like the rest of us. But I'm the one that made this roster. I'm the one that projected us to be good enough with our starting pitching. And that was a miscalculation on my part. And we've got to figure this out. And I'm working the phones and looking at our system. I'm scouring the waiver wire. I mean, I'm giving
You're
you the
writing the press release.
right. Well, but that's what I'm
You're
saying.
qualified to be Jennifer Grandal at this point. You can write the press release for him because it's
And
not
look,
that hard, and the accountability part of it isn't that hard
right.
in relation to 2 years ago when things were going well. And this is where Rubenstein gets in because I brought this up earlier after they got their ass kicked the other night. He doesn't know anything about baseball. I
Yeah.
don't know how engaged he cares to be other than bobbleheads and his fame and giving autographs and taking pictures. I mean, I don't. I don't think he's studying the sport of baseball at 75 to make really good executive decisions here. So hearing from him is weird because we didn't hear from the other guy for 30 years. Then we heard from
Yeah.
Fredo. on Martin Luther King Day, of course, because that's the only day he'll come out. When they're doing an honorarium for the African American community, and we could have no questions that day. I mean, just the absurdity of all. I mean, I look at who's running the country, and I think every morning I get up and it's absurd. But the baseball team hasn't spoken in forever, right? Like Elias got up in front of this 7 years ago, pounded sand for 4 years when they stunk, and then tipped his cap and did his little, pirouettes 2 years ago as executive of the year. And, the team's on the come and they're going to be great forever. And how can they mess this up? I mean, this is their leadership at this point, we're not waiting for Peter to die. We're not waiting for John to go away. All they're waiting on is $600 million, figure out how to put a coat of paint on the place. But in the meantime, they're trying to make money, drive
Sure.
revenue. Katie Griggs is here. I wrote her note. They need to sell tickets and they need to sell enthusiasm and they need to get people to the ballpark. You know, they need to be heard from. That's all I'm saying. In the modern era, what Peter did was never good enough, and what John Angelos was capable of was never going to be good enough. My bar's high for communication and for
I
grown-ups,
know it
and
is.
yeah, it is. But thank you. I'm a prick. Ask around. I'm a prick when you want
Well, I wasn't saying I
$35 to
wasn't
sit in
saying
the
that to
upper
be,
deck, and nobody speaks. I mean, this has been going on for
well,
30 years here.
well,
It's going on
Michael,
across the street with the football team.
okay,
So like it's just there is a messaging part of this when things go bad that everybody runs the other direction. That's all I'm saying.
sure,
And so for Elias,
he's got to
hey,
talk, and I will
team's
say,
given up
look,
20 runs twice in the last 2 weeks, and he hadn't been heard from. That's all I'm saying.
I understood, and I agree, and that's why I brought it up, and that's why I acknowledge that. I will also say he talks regularly. I mean, over the course of the last 5 years, once a homestand, maybe not every single homestand, but most homestands you'll hear from him. Now, like I said, it's been Cleveland. That was what, 2 weeks ago. He should probably be talking this weekend, right? I mean, before the team goes back out on the road. So I hear you. As it pertains to the product on the field, I don't know what David Rubenstein's going to say that's going to
Oh,
be
no,
helpful,
but I
right?
mean,
So,
this is
but
where if you
Mike
want
Elias does need to
Elias's
talk.
head,
Yeah, no
you need
question.
to talk to
And he
Rubenstein.
runs baseball ops. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Let me be clear.
Well, I
And
hear from Brandon Hyde every night. He has no
right.
pitching. We know that.
Well,
The other
and
people,
and
it
I would
is
feel
incumbent upon all of
I
them.
would say the same exact thing if the Ravens were 2-7 at the bye week. Eric DeCosta should be talking at that point. If the roster has been extremely flawed, but the Ravens are so rarely in that kind of territory, we don't hear from the general manager during the season, whether we should or not, but just the way their way of doing things. But yeah, you've got to get in front of this, and that's why I said even this is, and fans won't like this necessarily because so many are ticked off, and I understand that. And when fans are ticked off, they want to pound the flesh, right? A lot of people are calling for Brandon Hyde to be fired. So it might be as simple as Mike Elias saying, look, this isn't Brandon Hyde's fault. And if you go to that clubhouse right now and you ask those 26 guys in there, they still respect their manager and they still want him to be the guy. Now, we also know that it's a results driven business. And just because the players feel a certain way about their manager doesn't mean that the manager is going to have a lifetime contract
Bring
either.
back Earl Weaver and
But
Gene Mauch and Casey
right.
Stengel. If they got Charlie Morton
Sh-
and Kyle Gibson out there pitching, this is what they
Sure.
got.
And to be clear, that's not me. That is not me suggesting that Brandon Hyde should be absolved because I'm down. I'm down on all of it right now. I'm down on the young core. I'm down on all of it. But Mike Elias, if your thought is you're not making a managerial change because you feel like this isn't Brandon Hyde's fault, I'm the one who put the roster together. It might be to come out and say, look, Brandon's getting the heat right now, and that's not really fair to him. That's not really fair to the staff. It's not fair to the players that they're feeling all the heat because I needed to do a better job. I will do a better job. Brandon will do a better job. The players are going to do a better job. But, so it might be that, which, in terms of selling tickets, probably will make fans more ticked in many cases. But, they just got to win games. I agree with your point about getting in front of the media, and I agree with that. But that's not going to matter either
I,
if they don't
I
start playing better.
I
I
had a
mean,
guy at Coco's the other night say to me Wednesday night, we're watching the game together at the bar. And I'm not going to out him because I like him and I like talking baseball with him. But and he's a fan. We grew up near Memorial Stadium, goes over the games. And he said to me, Yeah, I got tickets on Sunday. We're going to the game. They're not getting any more of my money. This is what he said to me. And he's not saying this to me because he listens to the show or trying to rile me up. He's just sort of like, you know, when they're putting a product in the field that's worth paying for, I'm going to pay for it. And I hear this, and I'm thinking every bar stool in the cities. I
They're
look at
ticked.
Twitter, I look at all of
I
this, and
get
I
it.
say to myself, this is where Katie Griggs and David Rubenstein. Elias doesn't care if they make money or if people are in the stands, and he just cares about the baseball. It's like Eric DaCosta. They can't all be choir boys. So somebody's got to be in charge of getting in front of it in that way when it's going bad, and it's going
Yeah.
bad. And look, they beat the Yankees 2 out of 3. I can beat Johnny Sunshine today. You know what I mean? From that perspective, at least it didn't fall further down the hill when the first place Yankees came to town, and nobody got their feelings hurt after Tuesday night. But I am with you. I don't know. The answer is in the bats. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not pushing back on that,
Yeah.
but I am pushing back on if you have bad pitching, talk about the bats all day
Oh,
long. You're not going to win.
well, and
You're not a
look,
serious winner. You're not a you're
we're
not an October winner with this kind of pitching.
sure, sure. But we're looking at this on a conditional basis, right? I have
Eflin
my
Cummings back,
I'm very
right?
much like you. I have my significant doubts, even if their offense performs at the kind of level that we all think slash more so hope they can do at this point in time, because it's been so long that they've actually performed like that, that it's fair to be skeptical in that regard. But there's no questioning whether this is good enough as presently constructed, because we've seen it's not. So can you get your offense to a level that feels more in line with what expectations were and what the expectations and perception was of this young core? Can you defend better? Brandon Hyde talked about it after the game. He talked about their defense. Their defense, I think on Monday and Wednesday, was mostly okay. Tuesday night, their defense was terrible when they fell behind, and he talked about that. I mean, they need their defense to be better. They need their base running to be on point. You have to do the other little things as well as possible. You have to score runs. And then we get into the condition that you mentioned where you say, even if all those other things are good enough, I'm not sure their pitching's going to be good enough in the end. And that's I mean, we were talking about that before the season even started. So, of course, now after seeing a team that's played 400 baseball over the first month plus of the season, then yeah, I mean, but they've got to get the hitting back to a level where you thought it was going to be. And then we can kind of see what this looks like, right? And you know, they're not going to win 100 games this year. I mean, I didn't think they were going to win 100 games before the season started. And having seen this product for a month, I'm I'm certain about that. But there's a wide range of winning 100 plus games and still being able to hang around, get your pitching a little bit healthier. Hope that you don't have any more injuries in general. I mean, we've talked so much about the pitching, but Kowser, Westberg, O'Neill on the IL at the moment. I mean, the position player injuries have piled up as well. Gary Sanchez, even though he wasn't doing anything to contribute anyway at this early in the season, but you've got to get healthier. Obviously, you have to pitch better somehow, some way. You know, I don't know exactly how that's going to look. I don't know exactly how that comes to fruition, but you know, your offense was designed to lead the way. It has not led the way. And it's why they're 12 and 18, but there's a lot of baseball to go. And you can either choose to make that a curse in the sense of, oh my gosh, we have 5 months of baseball to go, or you can view it as an opportunity of, yeah, April sucked. To put it bluntly, it sucked. But they have 5 months to play better baseball. And if you can play better in the month of May and hang around, get closer to 500, even if you don't get over the hump just yet, and get into June, and you're starting to get, you get Eflin back. Andrew Kittredge is going to be starting a rehab assignment. He's a couple weeks away, so that should hopefully fortify your bullpen and give you another late inning high leverage guy, because it's been shaky getting the Batista in the ninth at times, especially here over the last 10 days or so, even though they haven't had many chances to get to that point. But you just have to kind of piecework it together, piecemeal, and hope that you, in the end, will have a chance the second half of the season. And the 3 wild card system is what it is in the sense that you don't need to be a 96 win outfit to make the playoffs. And then it's a matter of, can you get hot? I mean, we talked about this 2 years ago. The Arizona Diamondbacks didn't look like a playoff team, let alone a World Series team 2 years ago. And what happened? They got in and they got hot at the right time. Now, if you're asking me to if I think the Orioles are going to do that in 2025, I'm going to say no. But at the same time, just play better. You got to win 2 out of 3, win 2 out of 3, win 2 out of 3. Split a 4-game series. When you're on the road. Just that's how you creep back into this, and you look up at the standings suddenly 3 weeks from now, and hey, you're a game over 500 now. You look how much you've made up, even though you haven't necessarily gone on an 8-game winning streak to do it. So that's the goal, right? I mean, that's realistically, I don't know if you can expect much better than that from this team right now as they're constructed. But you know, get Eflin back at the very least for your rotation. See what happens with Kyle Bradish later in the year, Tyler Wells later in the year. I mean, who knows with Grayson Rodriguez? I mean, he kind of, I at this point until he's healthy, I mean, you're just not expecting him to be out there, because it's just his MO the last few years, unfortunately. But in the meantime, you've got to score runs. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, and it starts this weekend. They're going to see, we're going to see good pitching from the Royals and a couple lefties. The way it's set up, Bubic is going to go on Saturday, and they're going to see Reagans on Sunday afternoon, and they'll see Waka against Kramer to open the series. So 2 lefties in there, not going to be
Playoff team
easy.
here. You're seeing a playoff team.
Not a playoff team, but a playoff team that's not playing great baseball out of the gate, much like the Orioles. Now they haven't been as bad as the Orioles, but
Bobby
this
Witt's
is,
been okay.
but oh, sure. I mean, he's their 1-1. He's playing like a 1-1. The Orioles are waiting for their
He
1-1s.
ain't hitting 220.
Yeah, but the Royals, they've scuffled. I mean, they're 16-15, and that's after winning a couple games here this week in a row. So, we'll see.
I would
It
say it's
begins this
playoff
weekend.
pitching. They're seeing real pitching this
Fair
week.
enough. Oh yeah. I mean, especially Reagans. I mean, that
That's where
guy.
I was, and they got Shigano going on Saturday. Um, you know, he's the pray for Sane, pray for Shigano. Every fifth day is all we
Yeah,
got around here.
it's funny you mentioned that because I think you think of that way back when
Spawn and Sane.
I was actually thinking about that saying of like what would rhyme with Sagano or even slightly rhyme with Sagano that you could say, and I couldn't come up with anything. But it's
Work
funny
on
that
Tomo.
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Spawn and Sane and pray for rain because I literally was thinking that 2 nights ago sitting at the ballpark when they were down 15-3. So
How do the hot dogs taste when they're losing 15-3?
they're not as good.
Yeah, they're just
They're
not as
just
good. I
not.
didn't
I
think they
mean, it's
were.
just not. So hey, but nice to win a series. I mean, we've only been able to say that twice in over a month. So but as I mentioned, the 73 and 74 Orioles, they were 3 games under 500. 1979, 101 wins, 5 games under 500 in April. They had and then they had a 9-game winning streak, and they won 15 of 16. I don't think this team's going to do that. Their pitching's not capable to do that at the moment. But
Don't get me excited about 79 again. Don't do that to me. When you bring
yeah,
79 up in
this
here, that
team is
messes
not
with me.
1979. There's no Mike Flanagan or Jim Palmer in that rotation. But if you can just win some series here. Just scratch some series wins any way you can do it, even if it's ugly. Even if the game that you lose is a 10-run loss, right? Just find a way because, you've got to get back to 500 before we can have any sense of meaningful hope at this point in time. Right now, I mean, I'm presenting an argument for the pathway to get back to that point. And it's not counting on a 12-game winning streak. It's counting on trying to win 2 out of 3 and then going on the road and trying to win 2 out of 3 again. And, it's kind of how they operated 2 years ago, right? I mean, the whole thing was they never get swept. They never get swept. They never get swept. And they were really good in one-run games, and they had the best closer in baseball. And then before you knew it, they were on their way to winning 100 games before Batista hurt his elbow, unfortunately. But, it's not exactly like that. And you don't have exactly the same version of him, of course. But, you know, all these young players, I've said it over and over, and I'll continue to say it. Other than Holiday, they're not that, and I emphasize the word that. They're not that young
They were
anymore.
college drafted players, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Adley Rutschman's 27 years old. He's not a young guy. That's not young in catcher terms anymore. You get to age 30 as a catcher, they want to move you to first base or something if your bat's worth it. So,
If your
you know,
bat's worth it.
yeah, and that's that's you need these 1-1s, you need these top 100 prospects, to play like it at the
You want
next
me to come
level.
down here and get my press pass and say to Rutschman, you know we stunk for a year to get you. You know how many games we lost to get you?
Well,
Luke Jones is
what,
here.
what's
He's Baltimore. Luke, go ahead.
although what's funny, that was the year that they didn't stink on purpose to get him. That was the final year of the Buck Dan era. So, which, oof, man,
You've been
I've had,
through some ish.
I've had
Just
too many. I've had two memories of that team and the 2010 team over this first month of the season. That was the team that,
Juan Samuel, was that the year?
yeah, that was the year. Remember, it was Tremblay.
Dude, I
People
had to
thought
Google whether Juan Samuel was really the
it
manager of
was
this team. I knew he was.
2010.
No, I mean I knew he was.
Yeah,
I was on the radio. I
yeah.
got it all, but
But it was, remember,
like
it was Tremblay, and they got off to, like, they were on a 120 loss pace for most of that year until Showalter finally arrived. And I think they went like 34 and 23 over the last 2 months to have a record that wasn't utterly embarrassing. But yeah, man, yeah, I've had too many memories of 10 and 2018 watching this team this month where I'm just like, man, they got to be better than that, right? I think. I hope. I hope for the next 5 months. I hope for fans' sake. I hope for,
your
just
sake.
because it's a long summer otherwise until you get the football season. So, but man, you can't make it all up in one night or one series. But nice to nice to take two or three from the Yankees, regardless of the current state of affairs overall.
What are you gonna do with the night off? I mean, no draft tonight. Oh, I know NBA. I got you.
I'll
NHL.
probably catch up on some pro wrestling. You know me, man.
Ah,
I
that's
mean,
right. I'm
yeah.
sorry. That
I've got the DVR fired up with probably about three wrestling shows that I'll at least
always in
watch one of
season.
them.
Always
Yeah,
in season. It
never an
doesn't.
off season for WWE and AEW.
Vince doesn't give him a week off. There's no doubt about that. We had a great show over at Coco's on Wednesday. We're going to be at Red Brick Station in Whitemarsh next Wednesday. Come on out. Do have the Back to the Future scratch offs. I had a lucky badge at Coco's. Folks were having a good time over there on Wednesday afternoon. Great conversation with Jamie Costello. We talked at length with a man named Howard Perlow, who is a local title person who's very, very connected to horse racing and sports more so than I realized. And there was a big Maryland party for a bunch of business folks here in Baltimore and all across the state. He joined us, and Marcella made me a crab melt with Rasig, and Rasig got all of his digs in for the baseball and the football side of things. And we did chat about the 45th district with Corey McRae, Senator Corey McRae, who I always love having on. I heard more about his story. Fascinating. I've had Corey on many times, and I learned a ton this week. So please check that out through the weekend. All of it will be up at Baltimore Positive. Luke will be at the ballpark. The football team is wherever they are. That NFL investigation, I got my eye on that. So I'll be writing about that over the weekend as well. I am Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST AM 1570, and we never stop talking Baltimore Positive.